Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you can see and hear me clearly. If you can hear me, please quickly smash the like button so that I know it. And yeah, leave the comments in the chat function as always. So welcome to a new earnings reviews Q1 2021 for NIO stock. This time I already took some minutes and look at it in advance. So let me check. Well, I've got the file. I've already done a little bit of marking in the text here. So first of all, what a day again with NIO in the morning. I did a video already about the phenomenal news about NIO Park, or NIO Park, and quite exciting news, right? And of course, we had then a big sell-off in tech stocks overall. So minus 5%, I think it was for NIO, yeah, minus 5.34% during the day. But most of the tech stocks been beaten down as well. And now we've got the earnings reaction. Seems like NIO's tanking only a little bit right now, minus 0.8% so far. So that's pretty good for NIO, because usually we see a pretty big sell-off, right? But anyways, that doesn't matter too much to me because, well, what's happening in the pre-market and post-market and so on is not so significant. Also, really what I'm caring about most is the fundamentals of the stock, what the company is doing. So we had good news in the morning. And now also with this earnings report, I think my overall feedback would be that I'm really happy with it. It's looking really good. And yeah, let's talk through some of the numbers. Let me check. You guys possibly already did also had a look at it as well. So happy to hear your feedback on top of that. All right, let's jump straight into it. So here, 1.13 billion in vehicle sales. That's roughly in line with what I was anticipating. I mean, that's not too hard to pre-calculate. It means that the average sales prices of the vehicles have dropped slightly in comparison to Q4, which isn't a big deal in my point of view, because possibly there was also around Chinese New Year or before that, actually starting in October, and also during the Christmas time. I guess there are some couple of discounts also going on during that times in order to kind of pushing sales and stuff like that. So I was actually expecting a little bit of that, but it's not too dramatic. And then the total revenues are actually more than I was anticipating. So 1.2 billion. Let me quickly have a look here at my Excel sheet, which I have open side. I was expecting 1.18 billion US dollars. And so actually the reason for that is obviously that the other sales are 88 million instead of I anticipated 77 million. So that's good news, because I actually want to see the other sales grow, because that's for one part, it's the e-commerce business, but lately, of course, it's also the credits, the environmental, the regulatory credits. But I couldn't find anything else regarding the credits, how many they've booked. So possibly we hear more about that during the earnings call. Of course, NIO in last year has already collected a couple of vehicle credits, and I keep on collecting them. But then it's a matter of how they negotiate with other companies in order, for instance, Volkswagen, I guess they are buying them in China. I'm not sure for NIO specifically, but I know that Volkswagen is, for instance, buying such kind of credits from Tesla in order to be compliant. So it might be one of those companies buying them from NIO as well. So I guess they used some of these credits because they mention it here. Let me check credits. I mentioned here that they used the regulatory credits in order to offset the sales. So that's to be expected. But once we know how many of the regulatory credits they have actually sold, we have also a better understanding kind of how good the e-commerce business is getting along. And if you're one of my patrons, you'll know that I'm very bullish on the prospects of the NIO e-commerce side, NIO Live, like the retail sales, but also the online sales, of course. And if you're watching what's going on in the NIO app, there's quite a few sales and new products going on. So I expect over time that this will actually pick up a lot. And let me see if I find this paragraph here, but I think, yeah, they mentioned also how the increase derived from the 100 kilowatt hour battery. So that's a new upgrade, which lots of the consumers or the existing car owners actually did. So there's a big demand for this bigger battery, which is good. And was there something else? Battery permanent upgrade service. No, that's it. And yes, of course, the regulatory credit. So yeah, we'll find out more about, I hope they maybe start talking a little bit more also about the aspects of NIO Life and e-commerce business. Anyways, it's good to see the other sales growing here. So that's something which I found pretty good to see in there. Then my personal highlight here is actually the increase in the vehicle margins or in general, the margins once again. So the vehicle margin is now 21.2%, which is amazing. It's now, I mean, I can't remember right now, but it's just a couple of quarters now that we are actually double-digit vehicle margins, but now already with a 20 plus here. So that's amazing to see. Also, we need to know that NIO is not booking the stuff like the regulatory credits for the vehicle margins here. So that's the vehicle margin without the regulatory credits. And I think, I'm not sure, but maybe even without the Navigate on Pilot feature and stuff like that. And then even on the gross margin, we saw an improvement again. Let me check quickly on my Excel, which I've opened here in another window, but I think must be 17% as well in the, let me check, Q4 2020 actuals has been gross margin 17.2%. So yeah, it's a big increase also for the gross margins here, which is great to see. I stopped sharing my screen. Let me check this one again. All right, here we go. All right, so that's really good to see. Margins up, that's great. And it really shows in lots of aspects later on. Obviously, the net loss, it's my personal highlight here. We're almost breaking even here. The net loss, 68 million US dollars. So that's getting quite close to a break even. If you watched my videos before, I was kind of anticipating a break even around Q4 this year, if NIO provided, if NIO wants it. I think based on the volumes they're selling by then, it should be possible in the books. But of course, there are other aspects which they need to take care of in order to have it. And let's speak about the cost side here, because research and development here, for instance, it's only 104 million this quarter, and that's down from the last quarter. And that's surprising to see, because after they've done a couple of raises, so they have now more cash at hand, I was actually expecting that they are going to spend more on R&D this quarter again. I think, let me check again. Last quarter was, I think, around 180 million or something like that. 127 million, and now it's 104. So definitely a decrease here. And I was thinking, because, well, they are now starting to ramp also the ET7 production and so on. That usually also consumes money, of course, and resources. And now they possibly also already start working not only on the autonomy side, which they hired a new team and so on, but also already thinking maybe about stuff like the ET7, so the smaller sedan model coming, stuff like that, which should definitely at some point in time also increase the R&D. And I personally don't mind if the R&D costs are increasing, but we didn't see it this time, which, well, of course, from just a purely financial Wall Street kind of perspective, that's good here. Then SG&A is also interesting to see a slight decrease of 0.8% from the fourth quarter. And that really is the way into profitability, because that means that they're selling slightly more cars. I think 17,000 was it in Q4, and now around 20,000. So they're selling more cars, but having less cost for sales and marketing. And that's, I mean, that speaks for the product, because this shows that lots of users are happy with the current car. They're kind of recommending it to their peers. Others are buying it. The existing infrastructure of NIO houses and NIO spaces is kind of helping now. They have spent the money in the past, but now this brings in sales on the retail side, but obviously also on the app. They have the online sales. So that's all good to see that they kind of managing to sell more cars without having to increase in the marketing budget there. And that's why ultimately, of course, in combination of all of this, the net loss has been coming down. And I think is quite, I mean, yeah, you need to differentiate between non-GAAP and GAAP and so on, but it's almost, I think, in line with the Wall Street estimations. And well, it shows now that currently it's still not selling off in the after hours. So it seems that the purely financial analysts there might be quite pleased with that. What might be a downside, of course, but we all knew that was going to come, is the outlook. So expecting to sell between 21 and 22,000 vehicles in Q2. That's obviously the big issue around the chip shortage. Personally, I'm not too worried about that if they can meet that, because, well, ultimately that's just a slight increase then, a 6.5% increase from Q1 if they manage to do that. But as we know, NIO mostly nowadays actually manages to overachieve these numbers. So that's actually a positive there. They might be sandbagging the numbers here once again, and they might overachieve them at some point. But then what's really crucial ultimately is Q3 and Q4. And let's wait what they're going to say in the earnings call. But my general views of this is that NIO is still relatively at a small volume, so they can kind of still produce all of the cars that they need to produce right now, and still not face a real chip struggle, like a chip shortage struggle here. But the problem is so complex. Like there are many chips, and it's not just like one single chip, and they need just to have this one chip. There are a couple of different chips, maybe to do with different areas of the car. But some of these just pop up at some point that they are in limited supply. So that, I think that's why they all have the task force and so on. And that's possibly why they don't really know how well this is going to go in Q2. So let's see what will be the official news. I think Li Bin, in the previous interviews that have just been released in the last couple of days, he already kind of gave his views, but certainly, of course, the analysts from the banks, they might be really worried about that. But personally, I mean, like, I'm in NIO for the really long run there, so that's just a quarter, right? And just imagine they do this, they meet this guideline, roughly 20,000 this quarter, 20,000 next quarter. So that's 40,000 already in 2 quarters. And they're going to do easily more than 80,000 this year, right? And that's already a 100% year-on-year increase. Pretty likely, because automotive is this quite seasonal business, pretty likely it's going to happen that they're going to do many more cars in Q3 and Q4. So that might be actually a pretty bullish year. And then it comes to kind of more to the Wall Street expectations, I guess, rather if they really break even this year already or not. But on the growth side, I think there are not so many question marks. Also now in combination with how we see the factory, the existing factory with JIC is scaling right now. So I think with the double shift, they can meet actually soonish, more than 10 to 12,000 cars. What is it, a week? So that's that's totally in line with their revenue targets for this year. So these are the main numbers here. What else did I highlight? Let me quickly check if there's something else. Yeah, that was nice to see. Okay, the vehicle margin includes the NIO Pilot. All right, that one I was mentioning before. And it's having a higher take rate, which is good to see, because, for instance, that's quite puzzling actually to see that Tesla's autopilot and also FSD subscription isn't that well adopted in China, interestingly. So maybe Chinese users are more skeptical still about the capabilities. And it's interesting to see that NIO Pilot, I think the take rate was around 50% of each car sold, which is taking the NIO Pilot, seems to be even increasing here. And we had, with the firmware updates, we had new functionalities. So it seems to be a really well accepted product there, and the capabilities in the software area are really strong for NIO. And then that's only going to be better with the ET7, which Li Bin is increasingly bullish that they have the latest technology with the Aquila chipset or infrastructure for the ET7. So that's quite interesting to see. All right, then we also had one more thing, which was about this extraordinary shareholder meeting. But to be honest, guys, I've briefly looked into it, and it's a really long document. And for me, it seems they are amending a couple of things about the company statutory, and I think it may have something to do with the perceived Hong Kong IPO. That's my best guess. There seems to be some new rules about how board directors are getting chosen or not. It's really detailed. I need to take a longer look at it. I don't think it will have any implications so far on NIO as a company on here. So I couldn't identify something in this area. But if you have found something, let me know in the comments. But I basically just ignored it for now. Gonna take a deeper look. Maybe if there's something special with that, they're gonna talk about it in the earnings call for sure about it. But for now, I would just leave it aside. So this extraordinary shareholder meeting seems to be something which they need to do in order to just revise this document. Yeah. All right, let's jump into a couple of questions. So what are your views? So personally, once again, to summarize it, I'm really happy with it. I didn't expect NIO to come so close to profitability. Most of the fundamentals are intact in my views. I'm happy to see the margins increased. I didn't expect that, to be honest. And I also am very happy that the marketing cost hasn't increased. I would have taken an increase in R&D, to be honest. I don't mind that, but maybe they're also doing that a little bit more strategically here, in order, of course, also to meet the Wall Street guidance and the expectations and so on. So a couple of questions. Let's see what we can get here. What's the growth rates after other sales? Did they specify it? No, they don't specify it. But it is continuously growing. So let me just read it out for you. So in Q2 2020, Q1, the other sales were 16 million. Then in Q2, 33 million. Then in Q3, 38 million. So just a tiny increase. Then 71 million in Q4. And now 88 million. So it's consistently growing here. But as I mentioned before, we don't know really yet if they are mostly coming from selling the vehicle credits, the regulatory credits, or how much is actually coming just from the 100 kilowatt hour battery upgrades, and how much is coming from hopefully also the NIO Life, the e-commerce business part. But yeah, certainly that takes more time. But if you are interested in like the model around it, so in my Patreon community, I already posted my new business model, and I've kind of modeled the e-commerce case, because the interesting fact about NIO is, of course, that they have many more app users than actually car owners. So many users are using the NIO app, which are not an owner of a car, yet they might order some of the lifestyle products, so the NIO branded products, but also products from the third parties, like other brands that want to collaborate with NIO. And I'm really bullish on the prospects of that, because I can see that this becomes a tiny e-commerce platform. And by tiny, that could, in Chinese terms, mean quickly that it is as big as one of the bigger European e-commerce platforms. So that's the real potential here with NIO as a premium brand, and all of this lifestyle and community that I've built around it. And I think in the future, this will be a good chunk of their revenues. And it's good because that's also high margin revenues, and that's obviously good for the valuation of NIO stock as well. Hey Eddie, good to see you. Well, guitar skills, I think maybe when they break even, that would be a case when I could play a song. Maybe gotta write my own NIO song up till then. Maybe still got 2 quarters left to practice, I guess. All right, let's take some more of your questions here. Oh, that's an interesting one. I want to hear them announcing a factory in Europe. So I think not too soon, to be honest, but actually I would also like to see that, because the way that the NIO business model works, it's totally different from the existing OEMs. It's different from Tesla with the vertical integration and so on. It's a platform business. And once again, this got proven today with the announcement of this continued JAC NIO cooperation model. And so I wonder, like, whether or not NIO is going to pick a similar model at some point in the future overseas. That would just make sense, because, of course, frankly, they have the manufacturing capabilities in China, which is great. As we can see now, great margins. But at some point, I want to come closer to the local markets, possibly, and also avoid, problems like geopolitics and stuff like also paying the import taxes and so on, which could make NIO cars much more affordable in the future in overseas markets. But well, we're gonna learn more about how they do the market entry in Europe. So that's the first step. Let's listen how they do it. As always, I said before, my take is that they're gonna do it in small steps. It's quite a bit of a hard thing for a Chinese company to do that, to be honest. So NIO, in my point of view, could be one of the first Chinese brands actually succeeding at that. But of course, they may face some trouble. And I did a video before also about Li Bin's experience with Mobike, in which he invested, which terribly failed despite having all of the money and resources in Europe. So he's got this experience of failure overseas. So I think he doesn't want to get burnt another time. But yeah, certainly that would be a long-term option. And as I mentioned, I'm long-term investors, so 5 to 10 years. And then Europe factory is in the books. Maybe they're going to cooperate with some of the empty factories in the future. Some of the car manufacturers possibly not going to survive the shift to electric vehicles. So why not NIO taking over? Okay, here's a question from Charlie. I've heard rumors about merging or a second company, Li and Xpeng. I don't know. Haven't heard about that. Maybe you are referring to this the shareholder meeting event, but Well, in my point of view, that wouldn't make much sense, to be honest, because NIO is right now such a strong brand already, very much differentiated from the other OEMs, differentiated even from Tesla. And as I mentioned before, I'm not super bullish on Li and XPeng and so on, but who knows? I mean, like, it's just kind of those three companies, very different approaches. We know that the buddies, the CEOs of these three companies are buddies. They're regularly meeting. Some of them have invested in NIO. I think the CEO of Li Auto has actually invested in NIO as well, as far as I know. But I think actually NIO could do everything on their own. They don't need Li Auto or XPeng. In fact, they're already collaborating with XPeng on the charging side, on the network. So, well, let's see. I mean, we still have the open question mark about this whole battery swapping thing and the battery asset management company, which is actually open, right? It's an open standard. Well, the battery swapping standard, not so much. NIO has the standards in China and the patents for it, but the company itself is open for other companies to join, become shareholder, and adopt the technology and kind of benefit from those prospects of scaling this technology in China. But so that would be more interesting for me to see. Right. What percentage of new vehicles are consumers leasing battery? The last was 62%. I'm not quite sure about 62%, to be honest. It was more than 50%, that's true. Need to double check once again. I don't know the number by heart. I didn't find anything about it in this earnings release yet. Possibly we hear about it during the earnings call. Usually they talk about it. And I would guess we've just seen increases of this adoption rate, that we see even more of this battery as a service model being adopted. All right. Here's one question around the regulatory credits. Yes, indeed. They're part of the finances, so they do sell. They've started selling regulatory credits last quarter, this quarter once again, but they haven't disclosed it here in the earnings, like how many have been part of the how many in terms of millions US dollars they have sold. Do you think we could see a profitable quarter by the end of the year? Yeah, I think Q4 could be profitable if they want to. If they really want to, they could do it, because by then I think they're going to sell lots of cars by Q4. And then it's possible, based on what I read out of this report today, if they manage to continue with this trend of selling more cars without even having to increase the sales and marketing costs, I mean, that's outstanding. So they have it kind of in their own hands, because they can kind of play around with the R&D cost. So the R&D cost could be, for instance, postponed for another quarter just to show a profit. So it might be in the books. George, regarding your question, regarding the sell-off, so today NIO was minus 5%, and that had nothing to do with NIO. It was just, once again, the problem with the yields, the bond yields going up because of inflation fear, and that has caused growth stocks all across the board to being really much impacted. And of course, like NIO still is a company without positive earnings, so it's impacting them even more. And on top of that, they're a Chinese company, so you can see regularly if those kind of uncertain growth stocks are under pressure, then NIO is certainly has this kind of a higher risk of going down as well. But on the other hand, this volatility on the upside is usually also better in terms of, if things go up, NIO usually also goes up a little bit more in comparison. Someone's saying that NIO is actually green in the aftermarket. Actually, the last time I've checked, NIO was still in the red a little bit, but I wouldn't personally. I wouldn't, pay too much attention to these kind of moves right now. I mean, the early followers of this channel may still remember when NIO had really good numbers. I think it was in summer last year, and I popped a bottle of champagne because I was I was really impressed by the margins and the growth and so on. And what did NIO do next day? I think it was down 10%. So, but this is all short-term price action, So sometimes if you believe in a company, so I think what you need in order to be a strong hand is conviction in the company and an idea where this company can go in 5 to 10 years. And then if you have the conviction, you better don't watch daily news and better don't look at the share price all of the time, because I think, especially like in this recent tech sell-off, 80% of the days NIO is tanking because of some overall market news and so on, not because of the NIO fundamental, because the company hasn't changed. Or on contrary, there was so much good news lately. So that's kind of one of the learnings that I had also trading stocks, is like the markets don't really behave like you want them. It's not like good news stocks going up, bad news stocks going down. Sometimes can be just the contrary, and sometimes there's macroeconomic trends can be so heavy that there is no way of the stock price can actually react to such news. But of course, I also notice how recently the stock isn't really reacting to lots of the good news anymore. And frankly, that's of course also due to the fact that NIO has gone up quite a lot. I mean, we have increased more than 1,000% last year. So lots of the good news is kind of anticipated and priced in. Now it's for NIO to actually execute on that. And once again, with this earnings report, I'm confident that they can execute on it. So far it's good. As long as it continues like that, it's really good. So here, why you love NIO? Okay, maybe that's coming back to, well, before COVID, I've been in China six times a year, basically. And so my background story is obviously I lived in China. I speak Chinese and so on. Usually I do projects in China. And so I was in China very active in the automotive market, doing some consulting projects with, for instance, some of the German car OEMs. And because of that, obviously also need to look like what's going on in the innovation sphere, what are Chinese competitors doing, and so on. And I looked at NIO and talked to NIO users. I drove in the cars in China. I was following Tesla very heavily because I was an early investor in Tesla. And also I went to the Gigafactory in Shanghai following that, because I wanted to see with my own eyes, like all of this media fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Is there some truth to it? And in all of this context, I found NIO. And I also managed to speak to the management. I sneaked into the Shanghai CES, the consumer exhibition, and managed to just talk to one of the NIO founders and so on. So, I had kind of a real due diligence with the company, and I found that it's a perfect mixture between what Tesla doing in going full EV electric, creating a new brand, doing something totally different in this automotive field. And on the other hand, what NIO has is also this really German quality touch. I think NIO will be perceived very well in Germany, in Europe, and it's a really good combination. And then on top of that, the Chineseness, which is also, of course, software innovation. And what I found really interesting about NIO is the unique business model. So it's a platform business. It's not going the same way as Tesla. I don't like copycats. NIO has a different design. They have a different way of scaling, so they don't build their own factories. For instance, I personally like that. I know many Tesla bulls don't like that. I'm kind of in both worlds. I like both Tesla. I like both NIO. So for me, that was kind of, well, this company is going to be very successful in my views. And then, of course, with all of the issue around the bankruptcy and so on, that was a really good investment opportunity. Although in the beginning, I was also kind of had to build conviction. At some points, there were issues with the company, which I also kind of lost my trust in management for a while. At some point in time, I also sold some of my NIO shares again. But luckily, I was back in before all of the increase of the share price started. So I can truly say that I really like the company. I like to invest in companies that have many different business opportunities, not just only one. So and that are well positioned. So I think NIO has so many potential revenue streams. Really innovative the way that they're doing it, and that I think is a one-time opportunity. You don't have many of those companies in the market, to be honest. And I rather focus my investments in just a couple of very specific investments instead of investing in too many different things at once. All right, last question, or let's go to an end before my camera battery is also used up. Okay, this is an interesting question. Will NIO get into the energy sector storage? I think that's interesting. For instance, now with the new battery swapping 2.0 stations, that's cool to see that now there are 13 batteries in that one. So it will be interesting to see how that one works with vehicle to grid. And then if you listen to the NIO Capital, the venture capital, the investment arm of NIO, they told us that they're actually looking into that sector. So that's interesting to see as well. So I'm hoping that they're going to do that, but it's maybe not the main thing right now. So the battery swapping, the battery management as battery as a service platform will be the one, I guess, and possibly they're going to combine that with, for instance, their partnerships with Sinopec and so on. And then let's see what they can do with those batteries in the grid, but also with the NIO Cloud and all of those, power management things. Right. I think I'm going to wrap it up for now. I'm definitely going to do another video after the earnings call and give you some of the feedback on that. But for now, I think really happy with the NIO earnings here. That certainly are not a kind of a disappointment here. Quite the contrary, I think they're really good. So it could have been really much more worse, to be honest here. So I'm relieved. It's good. The next quarter will be challenging. We all know that, but Q3 and Q4, that's where we really see the buzz, and when NIO has also lots of steam ahead. And in general, I'm really positive on the outlook of this year already with the Q1. So that's totally positive. And so we should all be happy as shareholders for now, but who knows what the market's going to do with that tomorrow. So thank you guys for watching. Now gonna listen to the earnings call and then get back to you with a new video. So once again, if you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and then see you in the next video. See you guys.